Hello, my name's Brittany, and this is Mr. Bean, and welcome back to Tales and Tales with Brittany. Say hi, Bean. Say hi. Not a big fan of being on camera. Oh. What you doing? Yeah? Can you keep going? Today we're going to be exposing my secrets of the 100 series that I'm currently reading. I'm definitely more of a serial starter, more of a mood reader, and not very much of a binge reader. So I like to start series, really enjoy them, and then it will be months before I continue the series. So let's get started. So to help tackle all of these series that I'm currently reading, I have started in July what I am calling my series intervention. So this will be 1 week to 10 days each month where I'll focus on only reading series. And my goal during kind of this time frame is to read 4 books. The first one will be either finish or catch up on a series. The second one would be to make progress in a short or quick to read book. So that will be either a manga, a graphic novel, something relatively short. I also am hoping to make progress in a series read-along. Currently, I am partaking in 3 read-alongs with one that's starting in August, additional, so 4 total. I'm reading through the Zodiac Academy, reading through the Green Rider books in preparation for the new book to come out in September. I'm reading along with Vampire Academy, and I'll also be starting in August to read along the Witchland series. And then the 4th book that I hope to read during this time frame will be something that will be chose kind of randomly, whether it's by spinner wheel, TBR jar, a random number generator, any current readathon prompts that are going on, polls, some kind of fun way to pick a random book. So, shall we be nosy and find out what series I'm currently in the middle of? We have the Autumn Binder series by David R. Slayton. This is a paranormal series about a warlock. I read White Trash Warlock last fall. Don't remember too much of it, but I'm very excited to continue on. I do need to make my way through the series because I was able to get Redneck Revenant as an ARC on NetGalley, and that release date is coming on up, so I definitely need to continue on in the series. Also have Adrian and Exiled by Scarlett St. Clair. Really enjoyed King of Battle and Blood. It is a vampire romantasy, if I remember correctly. I believe arranged marriage. Don't remember too much of it. We have the All Souls. Oh, hi, Vader. I didn't know it was you. We have a visitor. Hi. Come. Want to come say hi to the camera? We have a Vader visitor. Vader loves to come down right here with me. My kind of office, not really office, or guest bedroom, and my little library is in the basement. Set this area up for me to be a little bit of a cozy place to store my books and be able to decorate without the cats getting too into it all the time because they can't come down here without us being down here. And Vader sometimes likes to come visit, but he's not liking being held right now. I think he's wanting to get up on the bed. He has some mobility issues that keep him from kind of jumping up relatively easy. We have the All Souls trilogy, which obviously has now expanded out. Read A Discovery of Witches for the very first time. I read, I think, the first half of it way back in 2017. Very interesting memory. I loved it so much at the time. And then I met my husband. He would have been, obviously not my husband back then, but my husband, and then completely stopped wanting to read at all. At this time, I was reading through audiobooks, so I was only having like 1 book a month. I wasn't as big as binge reading. So it was very easy for me to stop reading a book and then not pick it back up because I didn't have that I have to read a book at all times urge. It was not something that was an ingrained habit in me. But I actually picked this book back up. In fact, started it again on our honeymoon last year. Convenient timing, we went and we toured Oxford, where a lot of A Discovery of Witches takes place. And that very night, my Holden Libby came in, so it was pretty great to have that. I definitely want to continue, but the books are chunky, and the audiobooks are a good 24 hours. And my sweet happy spot is audiobooks that are about 12 to 16 hours, I find is a good amount. It will keep me interested. Otherwise, anything beyond that, I find it stretches out a little bit too much. And we have Anne of Green Gables. This is a Canadian classic. I was pleasantly surprised by how much I really enjoyed this book. When I read the first book back in the early spring, and it was an easy 6 stars for me. Something about it that just felt very island-like, definitely makes me want to see Prince Edward Island, where the first book takes place. Not too sure why, I've never been there before, but there was just something about it that made me want to go and see. So I am hopeful that I'll keep enjoying the book. The books, there's a lot larger than I expect them to be. I don't know why I seem to think classic books would be on the shorter scale, because apparently of one of the first books that I'm currently caught up on. Probably won't be caught up for very long since it comes out very, very soon. I think less than a month at this point. Assistant to the Villain, definitely a fun, quirky story that was based off of Hannah Colmere. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. She started a TikTok series during the pandemic times, and it became a book series. It's a fun, cozy, quirky time. Next, we have Beasts of the Briar, which is a spicy, wide choose poly retelling of Beauty and the Beast. At least the first book is, and then kind of continuing on, it spans to be more involved story and branches away from more the Beauty and the Beast aspects. But the first book pretty much feels like a scene-for-scene retelling of Beauty and the Beast, which felt like a little cringy to me, but overall I did have a good time, definitely enough to continue it. We have the first series that I think I'm likely going to be DNFing. We will see how it goes. This is Beyond the Play by Grace Riley. It is a college romance series following, I believe, their series. These are all the MMCs. There's 3 brothers and then 1 sister, and it follows kind of their love stories with various situations. We'll see if I continue. I tend to not like college romances, I'm finding, unless they are leaning more a little bit more adulter. Not that, like, obviously you're an adult when you're in college, but there's just something about the fact that I'm 33 years old that I'm not feeling like I'm relating as much to the early 20-year-old stories. But you will see there are. And then we have Blood and Ash / Flesh and Fire series. It's essentially a series and then a prequel series, but essentially you have to read them both ideally to get all of the context for the full series. This was actually probably, I believe, either my first or my second romantasy, at least of the modern romantasy that I have ever tried. Absolutely loved From Blood and Ash. I devoured it. The bodyguard trope in this is chef's kiss. But not entirely sure why I didn't continue. This was a situation where... Next, we have the Bonds That Tie series. This is probably one of my very first Why Choose romances. Essentially, it follows in this world. You are born and you have what's called bonds. One person is the kind of the central person, and then you can have multiple bonds from there. Our main character, Oleander, has 5 different bonds, 2 of which are fantastic shadow daddies that I do love. I did binge the first little bit of this series over kind of a 6-week period and really enjoyed it. And then I somehow took a break and never came back to it. I did start this series because of Covers with Cassidy. Cassidy at Covers with Cassidy was raving about this series after she binged this series. I definitely need to continue on, find out what happens next, especially with the cliffhanger that happened with Blood Bonds, the 3rd book. I don't know why I haven't continued. They're so easy to binge, especially because the audiobook. Next, we have the Born in Blood Mafia, which is a mafia romance. Started this one this year. Bound by Honor, for some reason, has been on my Goodreads want to read list since like 2012, which is the only time before probably 2024 when I actually used Goodreads. So I would probably consider mafia romances to be a bit more of a guilty pleasure for me. I find them really bingeable. I don't find many that are actually overly all that well written, but that's fine by me. I just seem to enjoy mafia stories despite regular romance, and romantasies and fantasy being more kind of like the meat of what I read. But every now and then I get in the mood to just randomly start a mafia romance, and I always have a pretty good time. So next we have the Boys of Tommen series. I read Binding 13 very early in this year, and this is one of the few situations where high school age, obviously this takes place in the United Kingdom, so I don't entirely know the exact age range of the characters in this, of how it equates to kind of the more North American system of school. But teenagers, usually I do not read kind of more young adult stories, but this probably is a very dark young adult series, if not more new adult in everything that it deals with. And this book hits you hard with the feelings. I really enjoyed Binding 13. It's quite long. It's a very chunky book for everything that happens, but I really enjoyed it. And putting off starting Keeping 13 because I do not want to go through those feels right now. But series, if not more new adult in everything that it deals with. And this book hits you hard with the feelings. I really enjoyed Binding 13. It's quite long. It's a very chunky book for everything that happens. But I really enjoyed it. And putting off starting. Next, we have the Bridge Kingdom series by Danielle L. Jensen. I will say this was, I think, probably my second romantasy ever would be the Bridge Kingdom. I absolutely loved it. One of my favorite books that has kind of the arranged marriage tropes where she's a kick-ass warrior assassin princess and she's trying to spy on her new husband to take down her enemy kingdom. Pretty great. Also enjoyed The Traitor Queen as well. I do need to continue on. I will say The Inadequate Heir is... Hello! What are you squeaking about? I will say The Inadequate Heir is on my The Series Will Self-Destruct list that I started at the beginning of the year. Next, we have Bride by Allie Hazelwood. This was my very first Allie Hazelwood book, which was very interesting because it's very different than all of her other books. It was kind of her first foray into publishing, a bit more of a paranormal romance. Absolutely loved it. It reads a lot to me like a more polished version of the Wattpad-esque serial-esque stories that I would read as like a preteen that would come out kind of a chapter at a time online, and you would all be addicted into what was happening in the story. So definitely a more polished version of that. I absolutely loved this series, Mercy and Low. I am excited for the series to continue. There is a quite... Next, we have the Bridgerton series by Julia Quinn. I did this series a little bit backwards in that I started with the fourth book in the series, Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, last year before the third season of the Bridgerton series came out. And I read The Duke and I back in June, and I was pleasantly surprised. I was really bored by Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. Next, we have Cambric Creek, which I've only read Morning Glory, Milking Farm, and it is a book you cannot read with a straight face. It's a smutty good time with monster lovers, and I keep telling everyone I know that they need to read it and record themselves reading the first chapter, because I don't think you can read that book and not laugh hysterically or make weird faces. And at least this month I was planning on reading a Blue Ribbon romance, which is Morning Glory, Milking Farm from the Minotaur's point of view. We'll see if I continue. They are. Next, we have the Caravel series. I read Caravel last year. Overall, I enjoyed it. I really liked the main character more in Caravel than we do get in Legendary. Legendary kind of bored me. At this point, I do want to continue just so I can finish out the series, as well as... next, we have Claws and Cubicles. Just a short, at least the first book was, I think, a 2.5 to 3 hour audiobook. It was a short, quirky, smutty time. I believe the second book is more of a 5-hour length book. These are the kind of books that I kind of want to pick up if I want to read really quickly, if I want something to not have to pay too much attention to, especially if we are in kind of any read. Next, we have the Cocanian series. This is an alien romance series. Pretty much don't have too much to say other than that. This one and Ice Planet Barbarians are kind of the ones I bounce between when I want to read a alien romance series. Tend to leaning more time. We have the Constellation series by Claudia Gray. Read Defy the Stars last year and really enjoyed it. It is about kind of a teen trying to end a war of some kind. There's spaceships, and the main character is an AI android of some kind, but he's a special android because he feels and has real feelings, and he can feel love. So it is an interesting situation. I definitely want to continue. I don't really have that many science fiction series on this list. Next, we have A Court of Thorns and Roses. My original plans was to have this book series done by the end of the year and caught up. And now that we especially have news of ACOTAR 6's first draft being complete, hopefully that means that I will be more willing to read this book. Read ACOTAR and ACOMAF last year. Enjoyed it, but overall I was disappointed in there. Definitely don't think these books live up to the hype as much. I was expecting to be completely obsessed with them, but I've just found so much more better written. Next, we have Crimson Sails, which is one of the many book series I have on the go by Katie Robert. She has quite the range, I find. This is a pirate series. Each series at least seems to follow a different couple. Read Hunt on Dark Waters in June as part of the Amazing Readathon. Overall, enjoyed it. It didn't go entirely how I was hoping, so I'll continue the series with Blood on the Tide at some point, especially because it's a sapphic romance, and we'll see if I will continue on in the series or not based on how I feel about the second book. Next, we have The Dangerous Damsels by India Holton series. I read The Mysterious Society of Lady Scoundrels earlier in the year, and it is just a fun, kooky time. I do believe it's Edwardian, potentially, fantasy in which I believe it's a matriarchy considered. I'm not great with my definitions, but women around, or at least there's pirates. But these pirates fly around in houses, and they steal people's houses compared to ships. It's quite interesting. I'm hoping to continue the series. Next, we have The Dark Side by Kristen Cunning, which appears to be a wise choose romance. I enjoyed 4 cycles. It was a nice short time, supernatural time, kind of confused about kind of the storyline and everything that's going on in it. I do believe it's supposed to be the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, but I might be wrong on this. Next, we have A Deal with the Demon, another series by Katie Robert, another unhinged time, pretty much monster erotica about women who've made agreements with a demon to then become wives of all of these various leaders of a realm for, I believe it's a 7-year contract, not entirely sure, but interesting time, very quick, smutty read. We also have, on another note, Deals with the Demons. There's a lot of series out there that essentially it is a demon slayer, and a demon very much gives me Lucifer TV show vibes. So overall enjoyed it. There wasn't as much romance, I find, at least time together with the 2 main characters, or the 2 the love interest and the female main character in the first book. So hoping to see more in the series continuation. Next, we have Dragon Shifter's Mate by Eva Chase. This is another Why Choose series with a dragon shifter. I believe she's considered potentially the last dragon shifter, or at least dragons are like the head of the kind of society in this series, and then her 4 different shifter mates. Next, we have Emily Wilde's. I absolutely loved Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies when I read it earlier in the year. It is cozy, but also dark. There's a lot of dark things that happen in this book for it to begin, considering how cozy it also is. Absolutely loved Emily and Wendell, and cannot wait to read more about how their romance progresses. We have the Empyrean series. Absolutely love this series. Luckily, I'm completely caught up. Fourth Wing, there is crack in that book. I don't know how. I finished that book in 2 days, and that's quite the long audiobook in 2024. It took me a lot longer to read Iron Flame. It definitely reads a lot different from Fourth Wing does. Iron Flame and Onyx Storm is very much more plot than kind of romance focused, and that's perfectly fine with me, especially on something that's going to be a multi-book series. It's really great to actually have one series that's a long series to be caught up on. Next, we have The Enchanted Forest Chronicles by Patricia C. Reed. Definitely kind of a classic, not like other girls, heroines, and dragons. Have The Everseas by Eldred Andrews, another series where I devoured the first book, absolutely loved it. Eric Bloodsinger, probably one of my top book husbands. Yet another series that I just can't seem to continue. Next, we have Fantasy and Fairy Tales by M. Lynn. It appears to be a series of retelling about various fairy tales, obviously, fantasy and fairy tales. I do think I potentially will be DNFing a series. I will give Golden Chains a try, but it just didn't really, Golden Curse didn't really hold my attention the way I thought it would. But it was a quick read. It was a read that when I'm listening. Next, we have Fae and Alchemy by Callie Hart. Everyone, including my sister, screamed at me to read this book. I finally read it early in the year. Overall, I enjoyed it. I don't know if it was an immediate 5-6 star feeling that I was hoping for it to be and people were claiming for it to be, but that's okay. Not every book is going to be absolutely perfect. Definitely really enjoyed the world building. Definitely a series I am excited to continue later this year when Brimstone comes out. We have The Flame and the Mist duology, another series that I'm so close to finishing. Read Flame and the Mist last year and overall enjoyed it. This series is a Legend of Mulan-esque retelling, mainly more inspired by the Legend of Mulan. Next, we have The Fire That Binds. Still trying to decide if I'm going to continue this series. There was a lot of controversy when Firebird came out. Essentially, it is a slave and slave master, slave owner situation story. Next, we have Georgina Kincaid. This is another book that was on my my Goodreads list since 2012, back when I started saving books. I do believe it's because a book podcast at the time that I was following called Vaginal Fantasy, I believe, had the first book on their book club list, and they read through it. Definitely think that, as the title of the various books say, it follows a succubus throughout kind of her time in her life. The next book series is Gravekeeper by Darcy Coates. This follows Kira, who has amnesia, but she has the ability to see and talk to ghosts. This book feels very much like Ghost Whisperer vibes, and if I had to describe this book, I would call it more of a cozy horror. I'm not that much of a horror reader, but everything feels a bit more cozy. There's not too many things in here that scared me too much. Mind you, I probably wouldn't read these books really, really late in the dark if I was home alone. But overall, enjoyed this book, and I will be continuing on in the series. Next up, we have the Green Rider series. This is probably the series that has been on my list the longest. It's the one of the series I've been consistently reading as it's released. These books tend to take 3 to 4 years in between each of the big full books. So it's definitely been a series I have kind of grown up reading. I first started reading this book in 2022. And by 2022, I mean 2002. Next, we have the Hades and Persephone saga, another one of my very first romantasy series. Probably my first modern day retelling, at least that I can think of. I really enjoyed A Touch of Darkness. And then luckily I had enough time in between where A Game of Fate, which is A Touch of Darkness from Hades' point of view, I had enough time that it felt new. I will say, going forward, I do plan to tandem read, so I'll be reading book 3 and 4 at the same time, and then 5 and 6 together at the same time. There is kind of a chapter-by-chapter breakdown that you can find on Scarlett St. Clair's website that tells you what order to read those chapters in if you are tandem reading. Next, we have Heartstopper. I binged most of this series in either May or June of this year, and I had such a good time. It just feels like such a wholesome story, but at the same time, there are parts of this story. A character does deal with an eating disorder during the story later in the books, and it was so, I don't know, it was portrayed so wonderfully, and I'm excited to continue on in the series. Next, we have the Hidden Legacy series by Alana Andrews. This series is essentially, there's 3 books that follow one person, so this is a Nevada kind of trilogy is what I call it, and there's 3 books that follow another person. I'm, for the purpose of this project, going to focus just on the one, to where I can minimize kind of my ongoing series. If I do end up enjoying the rest of this, then I will move on to the second mini trilogy. Overall, I had a good time with Burn for Me. It was an urban fantasy, a bit more unique, but it also has a lot of tropes that I feel like didn't fully age the best compared to when it was written. So we'll see how I feel when I read White Hot Devils. So I read City of Gods and Monsters in January of this year. It is a chunky book, and these books get big as you continue on in them, that's for sure. These are definitely one of those books where I think I just need to take a book and then split it out a few chapters a day over a long time period. That's for sure. I've heard not entirely the best thing about City of Souls and Sinners, and yet the series was also on a lot of people's best of list last year, so I'm definitely wanting to continue. I do think, at least for City of Gods and Monsters, easily 10% of the series could have been cut out, or 10% of the book could have been cut out, and it still would have been a good story. You could still have all the story arcs that was needed. It just felt like there was a bit of excess. And next, we have The Hunger Games. And I will say this is probably another one of the series I've had on my TBR for a very long time. I did read The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and Mockingjay probably around when I was 18, right before kind of the books were picked up and I saw the movies. Wonderful books. I reread the original trilogy earlier in the year, and I had a fantastic time. These books still hit hard. They hit even harder kind of now that I'm adult and I have experience in life, and I'm looking back and being like, these are children that are literally going through essentially not really a war, but they're going into this place where they're murdering each other. And why do children have to pay for the price for something that happened years ago, 75 years earlier, as at the point of the Catching Fire? The series does really hit hard. Read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes for the first time. I did see the movie first, so I do think it is potentially a book you can skip in the series. It's definitely not as well loved. There's minimal changes I find from the book to the movie adaptation, and I feel like it was overall kind of a disappointing book. It's hard because it's well written in that it's written from the point of view of the villain, and you don't want to root for a villain. It's hard to write a book from the point of view of a villain that's not worth rooting for. Like, Snow is not an anti-hero. He's not something you secretly want to win. So that was hard. It was very meandering as well. Read Sunrise on the Reaping, but from what I hear, it's such a good book, but also emotionally devastating. And sometimes you're just not wanting to read an emotionally devastating book. Next, we have Ice Planet Barbarians. This is one of my kind of when I want to read a short book or have a good kind of smutty time kind of series. Pretty formulaic so far. Each has had kind of a slightly different trope to it, which is nice, which will be interesting as I continue on. I do believe there's potentially more than these 15 books, but I kind of just grabbed the main ones out. I think I'll probably be trying to read like one each quarter, like one every 90 days or so, and that'll help me kind of get through this series. Next, we have the Lady Sherlock series by Sherry Thomas. Essentially, a Sherlock retelling where it's actually a Lady Sherlock versus a standard Sherlock. She's essentially pretending that her brother is the one solving these mysteries when it is actually her. Definitely one I think to continue. There are a few kind of more historical mysteries that I am reading that I'll continue on in. Next, we have The Last Binding from Freya Marsk. This is an Edwardian fantasy. So far, it's been very LGBTQIA friendly. Kind of the two main characters, I don't remember if they're both gay. At least one of them is gay. One might be bisexual. In the first book, in Marvelous Light, a Restless Truth is I know will be sapphic, and I know it takes place on a boat, so that will be an interesting read, I do believe. Next, we have The Legacy of the Gods by Rena Kent. I read God of Malice in June, and oh goodness, this book was addicting. This is probably one of the few books kind of that's on this list that I said that is a college romance, and yet I loved it. I devoured it. This book was dark, and yet I really enjoyed it. And so I definitely think I will be continuing on. Next, we have Legends and Lattes, another book that I am caught up on. It's a very cozy time. Essentially, what happens at the end of a Dungeons and Dragons adventure when someone wants to retire or needs to have a little bit of downtime. Really enjoyed this book, and some Legends and Lattes. Next, we have Little Thieves by Margaret Owen, which is a Little Goose Girl retelling. I absolutely loved and devoured Little Thieves last year. Really enjoyed the kind of love story that was starting to develop in that book. I definitely need to continue on, especially now that the third book has finally been released. Next, we have the Lock Team series, which is my favorite books to have discovered since binging reader media and TikToks the like. Really enjoy it. It is advertised as lesbian necromancers in space. Don't entirely know if that is a full good description of it, but it is a selling point, and they're just books that I feel like you have to read to experience, but they are brain books, and each book is told from a different point of view, and you have to kind of push through them. But a lot of the discourse about these books and how things relate and like the memes, it's just such a good series that I don't even know how to put into words my love for it. But still waiting to hear news of when Electra the Ninth comes out. Next, we have Made by Danielle Laurie. This is a pretty well-loved, it seems, mafia romance story. Really enjoyed The Sweetest Oblivion when I read it. Excited to continue. It does seem to be an unfinished series at this point, and it definitely seems, based from what I've read, since it's been so long since the third book was out, that we won't see this series be finished, unfortunately. We have the Madison Kate series. This is a contemporary Why I Choose series. Read this back in February. I will say I don't remember too much about it. I did overall enjoy it. I do need to continue on in this series. Next, we have the Mercy Thompson series. This is the series about a coyote shifter who's living amongst werewolf shifters. Overall, enjoying it. I do definitely need to continue on. I really binged the first two books, and Iron Kiss has been on my TBR. It feels like for months. I do think, at least for me, this book feels like a fall series for me, so I'm expecting to be wanting to binge these books starting in September. I have the Mindfuck series by St. Abby, or Stabby. This is a serial killer romance with the FBI agent that is trying to catch her. Next, we have Murderbot, which is about a security android that has hacked his governor module, so he kind of has his own a way of things. He technically is able to kill people if he wants to. That's why he's nicknamed himself Murderbot, and that is why he kind of has to hide this from people. it kind of is. Next, we have Mystic Bayou. This is probably the very first book series that I read that is more kind of the series of standalone novels that you can read together, essentially in any order. It's about this little small town called Mystic Bayou, which is near a rift in kind of time or in magic, where it's an area where different shifters or different magical people, they can live safely in a community where kind of regular people don't really go there. But there's a series of different scientists that go there and start to explore the area, to study the area of this magical rift. It's a pretty good time. It's definitely something I do need to continue. I was binging this when it was available on Audible Plus. Next, we have Never After by Emily McIntyre, which is a series of modern day retellings of various fairy tales where the villain gets the girl. I am 2/3 of the way through the series. I read 4 of the 6 books. Definitely something that I do need to continue on, and overall I'm excited to continue on with this series. Next, we have the O'Malley series by Katie Roberts. These were a crime, family, mafia, family series. They do have to be read in order. Next, we have the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy. I read The Deal just a few months ago. It was my top read of June. Had such a wonderful time, and this was really a pleasant surprise considering I've been avoiding college and new adult romances for quite some time, but really ended up loving The Deal, and I'm excited to continue. I have one of the other series that I actually have finished this year. I finished reading Bookish and the Beast earlier in the month, which is fantastic. Happy to have this one off of my list. Next, we have The Order and Chaos duology by Alexis Almenard. I do believe the series might have a slightly different name now that it's expanding past the duology. House of Bane and Blood was definitely my best read so far of 2025. I think I read it in 2 days. There was just something about Nico and Camilla. I am just so excited to continue on in the series and finally read City of Mirth and Malice, but this book is just so good, probably the best romantasy I've ever read. Next, we have the Outlander series. This is another series that I have mixed feelings about. I tried reading Outlander 3 different times before it was finally successful. It's long. These books are long. They're over 24 hours of audio listening time, at least for the first book. That is a lot of book to get through. That is very easy for me to become bored, become distracted when I'm listening, and I just don't want to keep going back to try to get more details with these books. But I overall did like the core of the story, and it's definitely something I do want to continue, but the problem is it's one of those series where I have to take a book and I have to read that book over a 2-month period, if not longer. I think it was a good 6 months when I finally started Outlander again before I continued on. Next, we have Paranormal Romance by Camilla Isley. I read Don't Kiss and Spell last year. It was a cute time. I'll definitely be reading A Match Made in Coven when it comes out later this year, and then we'll see if I continue. It was like Don't Kiss and Spell was a 3.5-star book for me. Nothing that completely blew me out of the waters, but it was a cute paranormal romance and the kind of thing I feel like I want to read when it gets cozy time in the fall. Peaches and Honey series, really enjoyed Peaches and Honey. It definitely felt like a very similar along the vibes of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, which was one of my favorite books and reads of last year. I am excited to continue on. The book has been picked up traditionally now, I do believe, so it might be a bit of time before I can continue on and read Pits and Poison because I'm waiting for the audiobook to be released. Next, we have the Plated Prisoner series. This is another of what I call my original romantasies, which is one of the first romantasy books that I read when I got back into reading again a few years ago. Those kind of 3 series would be the Plated Prisoner series, The Bridge Kingdom, and then From Blood and Ash. Yet somehow those are like what got me back into reading series, and I haven't continued or finished on any of them. Luckily with the Plated Prisoner, this is the one I've gotten the furthest on between those 3 series. Out of all of those 3 series, definitely to continue on. I am at the halfway mark. I did put this series on this series will self-destruct list for this year, hoping that I really should continue on. It's such a good series and it's overall well loved. Then we have the Poison Study series. I first read the Poison Study, I believe, in 2023. Overall had a good time. It's very much reads how it would for the time period that it was written, and I do believe it was like the mid to early 2010s is when it originally came out, if I'm remembering correctly. I could be remembering wrong, so don't call me to that, but I am excited to continue. Next, we have the Powerless trilogy, which has kind of the 3 main books, and there's 2 novellas. Overall, I was disappointed by Powerless. This was a book that I found a lot of people were yelling about how great it was, and maybe if this is one of my first romanticies, I would have enjoyed it more. I did read Powerful earlier this year, and it just felt like a book you had to tandem read with Powerless. Next, we have the Rebel Blue Ranch series. Definitely one of my favorite book series, especially my favorite cowboy romance series to date. I've read so far is Lost and Last Suit, so there's only one to go, and I've really resonated with the character of Teddy. She's very much kind of a character where it's like all of her friends have moved on, or they're getting married, or they have their life together, or they're having children, and she just doesn't know what she wants to do. Her life is about to be in turmoil. The place where she works has just sold, and so she ends up working for her best friend's brother as a nanny for a summer, and they are kind of not really enemies, but you can't really have an enemies to lovers, I find, in a contemporary romance or more contemporary romance, unless it's like a mafia romance. But they don't like each other. At least it's implied that they don't like each other beforehand. So we have the Regency Fairy Tales by Olivia Atwater. I had such a wonderful time with Half a Soul earlier in this year. It is, as it says, essentially a Regency fairy tale, Regency-esque, and there's Fae. And I'm excited to continue on to see where the rest of the story goes. Feels very Bridgerton with fairies vibes. Next, we have the Rivenwild series by Melissa Wright. Overall, a good time. I don't remember too much about this series so far, but I read Beyond the Filigree Wall nice and quickly, and I do believe there's Fae in this series, so definitely one I want to continue on when I need some time to continue on. Next, we have another series that I am almost done. Only one more book to go with this one. The Ruby Red trilogy is about teenage time travelers. I do need to continue on with this at some point. Hopefully, I'm planning to finish it by the end of the year at this rate, because I really want to get rid of all of these series that only have one book left. Next, we have the Ruinous Love trilogy by Brynne Weaver. I had such a good time with Butcher and Blackbird. It's definitely I would describe it as unhinged. It's definitely a rom-com with people that just happen to be serial killers. Read Butcher and Blackbird when I was quite sick on my honeymoon last year, so definitely some great memories associated with this book of being almost delirious with a fever and reading it, so it made it even more of a fun time. Definitely something I do need to continue on with. Next, we have the Saga of the Unfated by Danielle L. Jensen, which is a Viking romantasy, and in this world there are gods that kind of touch you in a way that you are kind of considered god-touched, and you get powers from that. Read book one last year, just prior to my sister's Viking-themed wedding, and it was such a fun time. We have The Scorched Throne by Sarah Harem. Really excited that Jasad Crown just came out a few weeks ago. It is a book series I definitely need to continue. I really enjoyed it. I have heard that it is a book that does throw you right back in where you left off from the Jasad heir with very little kind of reminder or context. So definitely have heard that I should either reread the Jasad heir before going into the Jasad Crown, or find a place that has a really good summary for the Jasad heir. Next, we have the Secret Projects by Brandon Sanderson. Still trying to figure out if I am going to kind of fully continue this series. Several of these books do take place as part of the Cosmere. I do eventually, I think, want to start my reading of the Cosmere, but it's such a big book series that it seems really overwhelming, so I'll have to wait until I think someone does a Cosmere read-along that I know or that I follow to help give me that structure to continue on. Have a series of unfortunate events, because who doesn't want to follow the series of three adopted children with their crazy Uncle Olaf trying to essentially kill them off. I really enjoyed The Bad Beginning. Really do need to continue on. These are such short, easily bingeable books that I should just continue on. And there's a fair number of them, 13 of them to get through. Next, we have Serpent and Dove, which is a secret witch and witch hunter romance. Definitely a fun time taking place in an alternate historical France, something I'm excited to continue. We have The Shades of Magic by V.E. Schwab. Really enjoyed A Darker Shade of Magic, and the kind of storyline in A Gathering of Shadows was quite fun, so definitely a series I do need to kind of continue on. Another series I want to try to finish up by the end of this year. Next, we have the Shards of Magic series. Started this series as one of my very first read-alongs in November, kind of a buddy read situation where we could comment back and forth about what's going on. It was such a fun occurrence that I kind of got addicted to buddy reads, but I'm terrible at keeping up with them and remembering to actually comment, but love reading others' comments and their reactions to things. Is a romantasy, but also doesn't focus too much on the actual romance, I think. I think the actual kind of love interest that's going to be endgame will hopefully be a little bit more present in the second book when it comes out. We have The Shepherd King duology by Rachel Gillig, something I really need to continue. Really enjoyed One Dark Window. Wasn't as obsessed with it as I was hoping to be, but overall, it was a good time. Was kind of disappointed to find out that we don't spend as much time with the main character of One Dark Window in Two Twisted Crowns, so we kind of have a completely different female main character, but it's definitely another series I need to continue this year. So we have Side Quest Row. This is a series that does remind me a little bit of Legend Lattes. It does very much feel like what the background characters in a D&D campaign might be doing. It's two rival shopkeepers that both own a potion store. I guess they're potioneers, own separate potion stores, and they're competing for clients, for people to buy their wares. And of course, they fall in love. We have Silver Elite by Danny Francis, a dystopian, very much from what I hear, Divergent meets Magic. So overall, I had a good time. Next, we have The Soul Charmer, which is a paranormal romance about someone who goes and collects souls from people. Essentially, in this world, people are able to borrow souls, and they kind of get high off of it, or it makes them be more confident, and they're able to get away with things a lot more. This was interesting. Definitely another series that I think I need to try book 2 to see if I'm going to continue it. Next, we have The Sovereign Mountain, which is a cowboy BDM romance series. How there's this many cowboys on this mountain that are into BDSM, I don't know, but I enjoyed Sovereign, and it's definitely a series I'm considering continuing. Next, we have Stariel. Really enjoyed The Lord of Stariel when I read it. It was available in the Audio Plus catalog, so definitely something I'm looking to continue. It's a little bit more, I believe, indie or self-published. I know it was entered into SBFBO one year, and I do believe it did fairly well. I don't think it won, but I think it did make it to the semifinals. Next, we have Supernatural Singles, which, as the name suggests, is a series of supernatural romances. There's witches, there's werewolves, there's probably a ghost, who knows? But overall, I enjoyed reading Not the Witch You read last year, and I think it's a series I'm probably going to continue on reading when it's the fall. Next, we have Throne of Glass. There is something about this series that is daunting. It is such a well-loved series that I think I've been scared to continue. I told myself at the beginning of the year that this was going to be one of the series that I was going to read this year, with one book each month, and then I was going to attempt the Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn tandem read. And I read Throne of Glass in January, had an amazing time, overall enjoyed it, and then I never continued it. I keep hitting deliver later on Crown of Midnight, and soon it's going to be the time to continue it. I know for sure. I'm definitely not going to be finishing the series this year, especially since I'm going to focus on getting caught up on a few more series as well as finishing out series. But I do think I will be continuing this book. Hopefully Crown of Midnight. Hopefully by the fall I've at least started that book. We have the Twisted series, and goodness, I have a love-hate relationship with these series. I despise Twisted Love so much. It was okay. It was well written. I absolutely hate Alex Volkov as a love interest. That book just felt like it was trope after trope after trope being thrown at you, and not in a hee-hee way, look at all these tropes, I know what I'm doing situation. Overall, I did enjoy the Twisted games. This is another one of those situations where it is a college-age romance that I don't know if it's just not vibing with me, since there's such an age gap between me as the reader and how old the character's supposed to be. But I definitely need to continue on in the series, because it just feels like a series that you have to try to read. It's such a popular romance series. Next, we have Venom by Sanjay Patel. I really enjoyed A Drop of Venom when I read it last year. I do need to continue with A Touch of Blood, which is, I believe, a Hades and Persephone retelling with some more, I believe, Indian touches. Excited to continue on in the series. I do keep hitting deliver later on it right now. I do have too many books in a row, but hopefully things will line up properly where I can accept my Libby hold. We have Under the Oak Tree. I originally read this series technically illegally when it was being translated online. Excited that this book was finally able to be released. So I read it properly when it was released and properly translated. Oh my goodness, there's so many red flags in this book. Next, we have Vampire Academy by Richelle Mead. I am reading this book as part of the Vampire Academy read-along. We'll also be reading along with the Bloodline series after finishing Vampire Academy. I'm about 3/4 of the way through Vampire Academy right now, the first book, and I'm enjoying myself so far. Next, we have Veronica Speedwell, which is a historical mystery series. I guess a female amateur sleuth, I would say. She is a butterfly enthusiast, and he is a taxidermist. So overall, enjoyed Curious Beginning. Another book I need to continue. I did put it on the series will self-destruct, as it does feel like a book that I won't get to without kind of that little push. We have The Villains of Lore by Jasmine Mass. Really ended up enjoying Blood of Hercules. There is a distinct style to this book where you have to be in a specific mood to read it. Definitely, I enjoyed it better as an audiobook than when I tried to physically read it. But once I got used to the style, it was a fun, unhinged time, and I'm excited to see how things continue. I do believe it's kind of why-choosy, if I remember correctly, so we'll see how it ends up continuing. We have The War of Lost Hearts by Carissa Broadbent. I am so close to finishing this series. I finally have accepted Mother of Death and Dawn, and I currently have 17 days to read it or listen to the audiobook, so I am determined to continue. And hopefully by my kind of next big update, it will be completely off of my list. We have Wicked Games by Kaylee Smith. I'm excited to continue this series. I read Phantasma as an ARC before it was released. Felt so lucky to be part of that before it exploded in popularity. It did take me quite some time to read it because I did have to physically read it. So I am really excited to eventually get to Enchanter. I did technically get that one as an e-arc, but I've since discovered I'm very much an audiobook only person. So I will have to get to that soon, hopefully. I do believe I'm going to be attacking that in August. Next, we have the Wicked Villains series by Katie Robert, the final Katie Robert series on this list. This is a series of erotic retellings of various fantasies and fairy tales where I do believe the villain gets the girl, or the villain gets the love interest. Next, we have The Wicked Years by Gregory Maguire. I read Wicked probably when I was 17 or 18, back when the musical first came out and became popular. Reread Wicked last year, and goodness, I did not remember much of it, and goodness, it is dark. It is nothing like the movie. It's nothing like the musical. It's very, very political. It's definitely a series I do need to try to continue. I believe I did read this one, Son of a Witch, in early college. I don't remember much of it, though. I barely remember any of it. I do know I attempted to read A Lion Among Men when it came out. I had it on an audiobook CD, and I just couldn't, at that time, retain everything from it. So now that I am older and I'm not in school anymore, hopefully I'll be able to continue on this series. I know the books aren't that long, but they're another one of those books where it feels like it's going to take me a month or 6 to 8 weeks to finish. Next, we have the newest series to my list. I haven't actually started this yet, but I do plan to start it as a read-along with some friends of mine. This is The Witchlands by Susan Dennard, especially now that the last book has been announced to be coming out in November. The plan is to read one book a month starting in August, and I'm excited to continue. I haven't read a lot of YA fantasy, and I have The Wolf King, which is a historical werewolf romantasy, I would say. It's very more focuses on the romance. It seems very much feels like if werewolves meant Outlander, but it's also its own thing. Overall, I enjoyed The Wolf King. Wasn't my most favorite thing. Wish there was a bit more plot to it than just the choosing between two guys situation. It seems to be a love triangle, but maybe we'll be lucky and it will end up being why I choose. But I'm at the point where I'm definitely preferring the Dark Shadow werewolf and not the Golden Retriever werewolf, which is sad. And last but not least, we have Zodiac Academy, another giant series, another unhinged time that I was actually really surprised by how much I enjoyed this. I have joined the Zodiac Academy read-along that is led by Zodiac Academy read-along, which is led by Vanessa of Read with Dr. B. I'm excited to be joining that, to be reading one book a month for the next 2 years. I do believe we are also inserting in kind of some of the other books that are other series by these authors that are needed to read in the context, but left Zodiac Academy on here for now, and as we go, I'll probably add on the other books. Luckily, I am already kind of 2 books ahead because I read book 1 and book 2 earlier in the year, so hopefully I will have a little bit of a buffer for me potentially falling behind, which I tend to do with read-alongs. So thank you so much for joining. So thank you so much for joining me today and going through the 100 book series that I am currently in the middle of, whether that is books that I'm currently reading or series I'm currently caught up on. And hopefully over time, we'll see me get this list low, especially since I'm trying to cap my currently reading list at 100 series. So definitely need to finish out some books to make way for new series with time. So hopefully one day I'm hoping to get this list down to 50 series that are kind of on the go, including series I am caught up with. But we will see what kind of progress I am able to make between now and the end of the year. Thank you and have a wonderful day.